They give us sickness and then treat us. They make us hungry and then feed us. If you do not change your ways, the people will rise.
Black November is a crime drama about an oil-rich Nigerian community taking drastic steps to top the drilling in their homeland. The film co-stars Oscar winner Kim Basinger and Academy Award nominee Mickey Rourke as a ruthless American oil baron. Now, this is an interesting film because it started out one way where we get to see, Mickey Rourke being taken hostage, and it's really not his story. That's just the wraparound, and there's a story behind that, Zeba, that you know a little bit about.
Yeah, well, this film initially came out in 2012 as a Nollywood production.
And it was played at the United Nations.
Yes, it was. And because it talks about, a real issue, which is the oil issue in Nigeria. And then later on, more money came into the film. There were scenes reshot. And the frame of the Mickey Rourke character and the Kim Basinger characters were kind of added in, I guess, to, attract Western audiences. And you really do feel a sense that you're kind of watching two movies spliced together, yes, which is probably my biggest issue with the movie.
Well, I agree. I think it was problematic, though I do like the idea that the movie had such strong social and political content.
Yeah, totally.
Her story, and especially the lead actress, Mbanga Mata, I thought that she did a really good job. She did something interesting where she, in some ways, underplayed it, where she could have overplayed certain things.
You think so?
I thought so, but because I thought the actors around her were really overplaying.
They were really overplaying.
They were really
that was
overplaying
my big issue with it,
So-
and what distracted me from a lot of the narrative was because there was so much.
What did you think of Akon and Wyclef?
Yes, which brings up the point we were making about, now they both play Nigerians, Akon
Yes.
and Wyclef, who, Wyclef I thought had the accent right.
He got it. He did a pretty good job. I was impressed, yeah.
Well, you were going to say something? What do you think of
No,
that?
I thought they were both very intense in their scenes. I think they do overplay it, but it makes her performance so much better.
It does, and it's interesting because I have to say I was actually somewhat distracted by Mickey Rourke in this film. I thought he was miscast. I thought he's not looking good. That wig was not working for him. The cauliflower face was not happening. And, Kim Basinger seemed a little lost, like she didn't really know what she was doing there.
Yeah.
I understand why they did it, to bring in the audiences, and I would hope that audiences, Western audiences or whoever that don't know about Nollywood films would see this and get what the film is about. And I think that's probably more important than the actual quality of the film itself.
Totally. I think at the end of the day, I mean, Nollywood has come a long way in the past 10 years, and the filmmaking is becoming more and more refined. It's not quite, at a certain level yet, but they're trying. And if I can, say one good thing about this movie is that you can see a sense of passion behind it.
Definitely.
And that's always a good thing to see in a movie.
Now, Monica, would you recommend this film?
I would recommend this film. I was very interested. The actual story, that middle part, that's an incredible story, and I think it should be seen.
And you would recommend as well?
I would recommend it, especially to those who love Nollywood film.
I would also recommend it to those who are not familiar with Nollywood and want to see Nollywood as it's really, like you said, it's a growing film industry
Yes.
that is making better and better films. And I feel these are stories that do need to be told.
Yes.
So we're going to move on. Our next film is Valley of Saints, where we find Gulzar, a boatman, and Asifa, a beautiful scientist, trapped in Kashmir at the height of war. But when the two fall in love, Gulzar must decide whether to leave his war-torn homeland or choose the woman he loves. Now, this is a movie that I thought it's a blend of documentary and narrative storytelling, and I really thought it worked. I think it sets a pace. From the very beginning, you see him taking care of this older man, and it stays at that pace, even though there are a lot of things going on. And the idea of two men fighting over the same woman, I thought that kind of worked. You agree?
I agree. It's a very common story. It's been the premise of so many films, but here it's done so much more gently. And I feel like this is more about a slice of life, more than it's two guys fighting over a girl. And then you're just taking in the environment and the setting, the war, everything else. It's just like, it's one big welcome mat into this story.
I agree with it. Now, you liked it as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a really beautiful film. I mentioned that it's almost like you're in a dreamlike state when you're watching it because it's filmed with such like a fly-on-the-wall quality, that documentary quality. But what I really love about it, it's not just that love triangle situation, but it's the friendship between the two men.
I agree.
And seeing both of them kind of going in separate ways and how that happens. And the main character, Gulzar, you know, this is a guy who's never acted before. And I think the director, Musa Sayed, did a really great job with working with a professional actress and then two actors who kind of haven't really been on screen before and getting these performances that were like heartbreaking and real and just super enthralling. It's a really good
I agree,
film.
and I'm glad to see this film actually finally come out because it won the Dramatic Audience Award of 2012 at Sundance,
Yes.
and it's just really coming to screen now in 2015 in a month that, well, we'll talk about that later. So, would you recommend?
I would highly recommend. This is probably my favorite film of the
Of
that we saw
everything we're doing this week? Okay, and you?
Of course, yes.
I concur with both of you ladies. I would recommend this film, and I recommend you go see this film, and I recommend you stay tuned because we'll be back. Coming up.
What is it? It's a time machine. Don't ever exceed the jump limit. It can be problematic.
Ethan Hawke is a time traveler on the hunt for an elusive criminal. But will time run out before his mission is complete? We'll explore Predestination next here on Arise on Screen.
So what, you're a cop?
I'm a temporal agent. We prevent crime before it takes place.
What is it?
It's a time machine. Don't ever exceed the jump limit. It can be problematic. If you ever want to stop the Fizzle Bomber, you'll never get another chance. Time, it catches up with us all.
In the new science fiction thriller Predestination, Oscar nominee Ethan Hawke is a special agent who time travels. On his final assignment, he travels back in time to prevent an elusive criminal from launching an attack that kills thousands in New York City. Hi, I'm Mike Sargent, and this is Arise on Screen. So I have to say, this is my kind of movie. It's a science fiction film that I think what I love about it, you know, and there are some flaws, but what I love is that it doesn't need a lot of money, no big special effects. The biggest special effect really is how it takes a concept and keeps expanding it. And every time the plot twists and it expands, you're like, wow. So I really, though it deals with identity like 88 did, I think it does it a lot better.
Oh, yeah.
And I have to say, it's based on a story from 1958 by science fiction great Robert Heinlein, but I really like this movie.
I mean, I agree. I have to say, I'm still processing the film. I was so excited to talk about it today, but not, although now I realize we really can't even get into like the meat and potatoes of it.
Without giving away.
Without giving it away, but I will say that, you know, these are the kind of time travel movies that I like. You always love the big flashy time travel movie that's, you know, doing all these things, but you're right, because here it's using time travel to make a point about something so much deeper than just the fun of like going from one space to another. And here we have a character, how do I say this? I mean, the most fascinating thing for me about this film is that at the center of it, we're dealing with an intersex character.
Yes.
We don't really see that in any genre, really. But what I love here is that the fact that they're intersex is not what the movie is about. It's just a plot point, and they're an actual person. We get to see an exploration of their identity overall. And that, to me, was what made it so great.
Now, what made you like this?
The story is what is the heart of Predestination. So I also appreciated that search for identity and that the little bit of the action sequences that cause the sort of like, how to say this?
Without giving it away.
Without giving it away. That's the really hard part because it's just so much fun to watch. I think that's what I loved about this. And it was a mystery that I wanted to solve and I wanted to see it play out. I felt that there was a little bit of too much drama inserted in with that time to catch the criminal. This character already has so much story there. We could have just seen a movie about that.
This is true. Well, one of the things you mentioned that you really like was Sarah Snook, who really gives a breakout performance here.
I completely agree. Again, can't give away too much about what she does in that, but it is incredible.
Well, you know, I'll tell you, what I like that this explores is not just identity, and you mentioned something too. It takes the idea of the transgender is just an element to really help us talk about identity. You know, as the story progresses and more of the story is revealed and you realize just who Ethan Hawke is and just who this character he's going after is, you have to start to question all these elements. You know, it's sort of the ultimate, did the chicken come before the egg film, and I think it really works.
Yeah.
So, and I have to say, the Sperrick brothers, this is their German-born Australian twin directors, and this is their third film. They did a film called Undead and one before this called Daybreakers, also with Ethan Hawke, which I really liked, which was sort of a sci-fi vampire film. So I think they're filmmakers to watch, and would you recommend this one?
I would.
I would highly recommend this, especially for the sci-fi fans out there.
Okay, and I have to say, we can't not talk about time travel movies and not acknowledge that Rod Taylor, who was the original time traveler, just passed. And Rod Taylor is an interesting actor who did not only The Time Machine, but he also did The Birds, and famously turned down James Bond, which he thought was beneath him at the time. So Rod Taylor was 84. Our final film is called The World Made Straight. It's about violence erupting in a rural North Carolina community when a rebellious teen causes feuding amongst its neighbors, and the feuding is a haunting reminder of the community's violent Civil War past. The film stars Noah Wyle and a grown-up Haley Joel Osment from The Sixth Sense.
Violence begets violence. It's like a sickness. It just gets passed on from one generation to the next. Your daddy never talked to you about any of this?
The teacher, your buddy. His mama's great-granddaddy helped kill off nearly half your kin, but I guess he didn't mention that, didn't he?
Now, this is one of those movies for me that reminds us what month we're in. We're in January, which is traditionally January, February, that dumping ground where all these movies it's Liam Neeson time, because this is when Taken came out in 2008 and was such a huge hit because it had no competition. But this is a movie that, you know,
it's boring.
So how do you really feel?
You know, the movie is working with a lot of interesting themes. We've been talking about time and identity, and I think that definitely plays a part here because you're dealing with a community that's kind of haunted by the past, by the Civil War. And it's an interesting concept. We have, you know, it's a coming-of-age story. Those are always fun. But for whatever reason, the execution here, it just doesn't work.
Now, Monica, you said something interesting about Haley Joel Osment.
Oh, we recently saw him all grown up in Tusk, which was Kevin Smith's last movie. But in here, I think he plays almost the same one-note character. He's just in as a sort of comic relief and then checks out.
And this movie, would you see this? Would you recommend this film at all?
I would not recommend this film at all. I'd rather watch a Polaroid develop.
Stop. Okay. And you, Zeba, would you?
She said it. She got it.
Okay. Well, it's definitely been a lot of fun. I want to thank you both for joining me. I hope I can have you both back here again. And I'm Mike Sargent, and we'll be back next week to talk more movies here on Arise on Screen.